Okay, welcome to the Korean Help podcast. Korean Help is a set of initiatives that tries to help the Korean American community in New York City and the greater New York area. My name is JD. So today we have two very relevant and timely articles, and why don't we jump right into them? So, did you want to share the article that you came across this week?
Yeah, I wanted to share an article from asamnews.com. It's called National Survey Finds Model Minority Myth Still Prevalent. And basically summarizes how um, Asian Americans are perceived um, through a distorted lens by the minority myth by other Americans. This nonprofit launch or leading Asian Americans to Unite for Change. They surveyed Americans, 2,766 Americans across the country, and they found that a lot of these people believe that Asian Americans are fairly or overrepresented in senior positions in companies when in reality we only hold 2.7% of these roles. Um, yeah, it just shows how little Americans know or understand about their fellow Asian Americans. Um, yeah, and
Mhm.
even though this this myth may seem benign, it has led to a lot of scapegoating and recently violence against Asians.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to read a quote from this article that was kind of funny. When asked to name a prominent Asian American, 42% responded, I don't know. 11% named Jackie Chan, although he is not American, while 9% named actor and San Francisco native Bruce Lee, who died in 1973.
Mhm.
Um, so, so on to the questions. So why do you guys feel that people can't name any prominent Asian Americans, or they named Bruce Lee?
I mean, even as an Asian American myself, it's kind of hard to name like a prominent Asian American that I could think of. So I can understand why like non-Asians would have a hard time. Also, I think that there's not a lot of like A-list celebrities that are Asian in America. I think we're all just like I don't like most like professional Asians that I know of like are in like doctor or like those kind of jobs. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
sorry. Yeah, I basically agree with you, Harold. It's hard for me to name I don't know, more than two, off the top of my head. I all I could think of was Aquafina or Steven Yeun because of Minari.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I mean, first of all, I am a huge fan of Bruce Lee and an even bigger fan of Aquafina. I'm about to start an Aquafina fan club here, but I agree though that it's not the easiest thing to think of prominent Asian Americans. And Harold, I guess I would agree with you. I mean, I would guess that maybe at least part of the reason could be that culturally parents kind of like push their kids to to go into safe professions and professional professions like doctors and lawyers and whatever, whereas a lot of the more well-known people like actors and entertainers and artists and sports figures, those are a little more risky profession-wise, right? Those who make it big, but not everybody does. Like more people don't, right? And so, and I think Harold, actually, that goes back to an article that you brought up a couple of sessions back about the lack of Korean Americans in the NBA. And I think I know if my parents would have looked like me if I was crazy if I said I was trying to be a professional sports player, right? So yeah, I would guess that that has something to do with it. But,
Yeah, and like I feel like it might be even easier to name famous people who are Asian but not Asian American, because
yeah,
maybe like a lot of Asian immigrants come here like you said, like for those safe jobs or whatever.
hmm
Um so yeah, I thought that was interesting. Um yeah, so the next question was, who are some prominent Asian Americans you would mention? Um
well, Bruce Lee is such a stereotype now, right? But I do think he has a lot of value, right, for Asian Americans and for Asians actually the world over. I think he was a very strong Asian, right? And I think we recently talked about like Steve Harvey, how he would kind of like make fun of Asian males, saying they were not attractive and stuff like that, right? Sorry, Harold, but Bruce Lee was the not meek, right? The very aggressive, strong, figure that I think that became symbolic for a lot of people. And I'm not necessarily into like the whole macho side of it. I do respect his. I think I respect his philosophy and skills more than that kind of image, right? But I do definitely appreciate the image as well. And I know that as an Asian male, I have benefited a lot from the Asian male stereotype that he helped to build. Right, not all stereotypes are bad, right? But and I guess so I just wanted to say that about Bruce Lee, but I also think K-pop is playing a pretty big role these days, right? I
yeah.
know a lot of like white people, Latinx people, they follow that, and I know, I mean, this is kind of embarrassing and strange to say, right? But I've had like non-Korean, like Latinx women or whoever show some interest in me because I'm a Korean male because of K-pop, right? um, I'm not saying I mean, I'm married for a very long time, so I'm not saying anything came of it, but I'm just saying I know I've observed that happen, right? And so they are what the K-pop guys are what they're attractive and whatever, athletic and artistic and cool, whatever, right? Although I can't say that I understand that cool factor at being the age I am, right? But I don't know. What do you guys think about the K-pop guys? Not just the
Yeah.
guys. I'm sorry, the K-pop people. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, definitely. It's pretty crazy. Like I know BTS like actually contributed like a whole lot to like the Korean
Oh,
GDP.
billions of dollars.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
hmm
Um, yeah,
I think music.
country's economy is dependent on like seven very beautiful boys.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I think music is very like an important outlet for like Asian exposure. I just thought of this right now. Like I think Jay Park is one of those prominent Asian Americans. If you
Yeah.
Yeah, first artist to sign to Rock Nation, which is like very like not diverse group.
That's not what?
It's not really diverse. It,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's worth thinking for a second about, like, thinking outside of the entertainment and sports kind of areas, right? Like who do we think of as prominent people, like non-Asians, right? Like, I guess politicians come to mind, right? Anybody else? Because because I think how do we get Asian Americans in the pipeline to rise up to those positions and that kind of like status or at least levels of awareness, right? So I mean, I guess news anchors, right? There's a lot of news anchors are relatively well known.
Yeah, I mean, I
Mhm.
guess Andrew Yang is kind of there
Andrew, yeah, definitely, definitely.
now. Yeah.
And you
I
know
think
what?
there will be more.
And I think, so whether I'm not saying I'm going to vote for Andrew Yang, right? And whether or not you agree with his policies, whether or not you would vote for him or not vote for him, I think he's very refreshing in the sense that he's not a martial artist, right? He's not whatever, right? This, Asian, traditional stereotype. He's a regular person, but he's Asian American, like you always say, right? But it's just very refreshing that he's a person, right? And his whole appeal, or I mean, to a lot of people, is that he's a bit of an everyman, right? And he can communicate with people on their level. So yeah, I think that's very interesting.
Yeah. Also, like I like the Asian guy from The Hangover. I always forget his name.
Ken Jeong. Oh, how could you give?
Yeah.
He's Papa Fina, Papa Fina. Because we're talking about Aquafina, right? So in Crazy Rich Asians, which I still haven't seen yet, by the way. So Aquafina is Ken Jeong's daughter, right? But the two of them got along so well while they were making the movie. Aquafina started calling him Papa Fina. And those two, by the
Yeah.
way, might be my two favorite Korean American or Asian American actors. Of course, Aquafina being half Korean too, but yeah.
Yeah, I like how like he's a doctor, but he also like, has like all these very goofy roles or image. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So why do you guys think that a lot of Americans falsely believe that Asians are fairly or overrepresented in senior positions?
Harold, any thoughts on that?
I guess it has to do with like how a lot of people are led to believe like Asians are hardworking and smart and like very like studious, and they like do well in education, so they get these senior positions. But in reality, that's not really the case, and I think that's kind of like a stereotype we fall into.
Well, Harold, I gotta pause there for a second because, is it not true, right? Because for example, I mean, we get hit left and right in New York City on the specialized high school issue, right? And we talked about recently how the admissions data came out yet again, right? For freshmen getting admitted to the New York City specialized high schools like Stuyvesant, Brooklyn Tech, Bronx Side, right? And so once again, it was like something like, I don't know, definitely majority Asian, but by a very high margin. I can't remember the exact numbers, right? But very low, other ethnicities. Like Asians outnumbered whites. Asians were the majority by far, right? And as New Yorkers know, that test, getting admitted is purely what do you call it? It's effort based, right? All the money in the world, can't buy a seat at one of those specialized high schools, right? I mean, some people might argue, oh, you take the money and then you pour it into tutoring academies, and but I mean, but it's still, the students still have to put in the effort, right? And so I think, yes, in some ways it's a stereotype, but I think those numbers also show that there is some truth to that, right? Because Asians do better on the test than other ethnicities, including white, and I actually, that's why, and we're actually criticized for it, being penalized for it, but in some ways, and not to turn this into a whole discussion back into the specialized high schools, but do you know what I'm saying though, Harold?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess in the community that I grew up in, like there's a lot of like honors and like these hardworking like specialized programs that I see Asians in. I guess I was like thinking of like America overall
Mhm.
and like trying to be like neutral But yeah, kind of had this weird bias in my head. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a lot of, especially first or second gen Asians, our parents like bring their old like Confucian style like ideas and teachings. And I think a lot of Asian Americans are very studious and hardworking, but they're also like very like good at rule following. And that's like the reason why a lot of us don't get like those senior positions.
How,
Um,
how so?
yeah,
How so?
like I feel like getting like those senior positions isn't so much about hard work
Mhm.
um than like just having like the guts like or like
Oh,
being standing out, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I would also add that, I think part of it is due to the glass ceiling and all that. If you're
Yeah.
not a white male, white Caucasian, male, then it's harder for you to rise up because they promote people like them, right? And it's not just Asian Americans, it's other people of color and women, right? So,
Yeah, there's definitely that. Yeah, I kind of like find myself and like kind of me like a lot of my peers like telling each other to just start acting like we're straight white guys. um
oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So, okay, so should we move on to the next article? Harold, do you want to share the article you came across this week?
Yeah, so it's titled Education of Asian Americans Begins with Reeducating Parents. And it's by Nathan Reddy. So it's basically an opinion piece, not really a news article, but it touches upon like a modern problem that a lot of Asian Americans tend to face. Is that like a personal development problem? So a lot of times we like ignore our intrinsic desires or like not let them like manifest by following what our parents want or like what their friend's kid is doing. So
Mhm.
then we follow these career paths that we don't necessarily want and become like numb beings on a death march with like a
Yes.
mindset of just do it and like get it over with. Um like work for the from check to check.
Hmm.
So then there's this ironically there's like this importance on education in Asian culture, but we can't really fulfill it to its like best potential if we conceive our education in the way that someone else or like societal pressures make us.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so the article or Nathan Reddy is basically saying that he's not really saying to rebel against your parents, but if there is really a like career path that you're just following just because someone else wants you to, or you think that it would be like financially best, um no amount of like mental health therapy or like some advising will help unless you find the intrinsic desire that you want and that you can actually follow it.
Yeah, amazing. Yes.
So this brings up this point of like how professional a person can be if they're doing their job for under social pressure instead of on their intrinsic desires. Like if we're really encouraging mediocre professionals over people who are actually passionate. So this brings us to a part of the article that says they know education is the means toward a successful life, but how successful can that life be if you're instructed? enact emotions and not feel anything besides numbness and pressure. I guess first question is like, how would you guys identify under this like kind of problem? And if you can or don't, how would you define like your version of a successful life in the context of like this education?
Yeah, like I guess I can identify a little bit, especially I feel like a lot of my peers go through that. Like a lot of them just like kind of like just like do like a certain major, like get a certain job, um, and they just like work, um, kind of like their parents, which is like weird because like their parents kind of like wanted them to like, I don't know, they must have come to America for like a more different life. But I kind of feels like their children are like kind of doing the same where they're just kind of like working.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. um, I
I
guess.
can. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, I thought you were done. Please continue.
Oh, yeah. I guess like that would lead into like the next questions, like how they would define like a successful life. Um, which I guess like I would define it as like, like just like being happy with who you are at the end of your life, I guess.
Yeah, very interesting. Um, so, I mean, I can also identify, right? I mean, that's the way I grew up too. Like, oh, be a, professional, whatever. Work hard. All that stuff, right? But recently I came across this quote by somebody, this very amazing person from Queens named Serena Gates, and she said, "Knowing your passion, you move with purpose." Right? Knowing your passion, you move with purpose. And so Harold, that goes back to what you're talking about, like the numbness, like the going through the motions and all that, right? It's the exact opposite of that, and arguably the remedy to that, right? And so, and not to blame the Asian mentality, not to blame our parents, because I mean, they're in survival mode, right? I mean, maybe a little less with you guys, right? But my parents, they went through the Korean War and they know what it's like to be hungry, borderline starving, and all that, right? So that's why, and similar to many Chinese people too, right? They know they're not so far removed at all from hunger times, very hard times, right? And so they're like, yeah, be safe, work hard, and we have security first, right? Um, but yeah, but it's not the ideal situation in 2021 either, right? And so I think, so we actually have, another effort that I'm involved in, and that, you're also involved in, right? And through NYC Starting Up, we have something called the Youth Pipeline Program, and we take the time to explore, the passions of of different, young people, right? What they're really interested in, they're passionate about, what their skills are, and then we help them to develop a whole, kind of plan, a personal plan to go along their way, right? But without exploring that, and our education system again, right? It doesn't encourage people. There's not enough spaces for people to sit there and think about, oh, what do I really want to do, right? As opposed to, oh, whatever, So I can't. I also totally like 1000% agree with this author in the sense that we do need to rethink things, right? We do need to create spaces where young adults and young Asian American people can just really explore different things, really examine what they really want to do in life, right? But yeah. So I mean, I can identify is what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point saying like how these our parents like have been through these harsh times of their own, and like that's why it kind of makes sense that they would want their child to have a like a secure path. so that they
Yeah.
don't go through same thing. But I think the article is also trying to point out to the parents how like while that is good, like the secure path is good, the mental strain that can come behind it can be very detrimental if you
For sure.
blindly
Yes.
follow it under
Yes.
pressure. So this kind of brings us to the point of like, how do we find the balance between like both ends of the spectrum of finding secure path and doing what you want? So yeah,
Mhm.
that's what you guys think about that.
Yeah, like I think like our parents and like the previous generation of Asians like they kind of have like an outdated view of like what a secure future is or like a secure job because like things have like really changed um the past like couple decades. I think like
Yeah.
there's no such thing as like, well, there's like rarely such things as like, like staying at a company for like what, like 30 years
Oh,
now, like
totally, totally.
yeah.
Yes.
And there's just so many other ways to like make money now. um yeah, it's just gotten a lot more flexible now, I guess.
Hmm.
um so I think like it is important to rethink their approach to education. um yeah, I know, like, oh, this is like a funny example, but like my aunt, um like my uncle is like a pastor, so like they were always like kind of strict with like my cousins and stuff, and like she was always like against them doing like playing games like late into the
Oh,
night.
oh,
um but then like they're all really into gaming, and like they're actually like kind of making money, like a little bit of money here and there
oh, wow.
from that. Yeah, so now she's like they're like not like super against it anymore.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Interesting. Yeah.
funny.
And I totally agree that, I mean, the economy has changed so much. And yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, right? But I agree with that. And so, and Harold, great find with that article, and I think that's a really important area that we need people, Asian Americans, Korean Americans, need to be thinking about, talking about, trying to I don't know, I wouldn't use the word change, but get our the older generation to open their minds up to new possibilities and new ways of educating their children, right? So. Okay, so yeah, so on that note, why don't we wrap up? And so again, Korean Help, we are a set of initiatives that helps the Korean American community. And to learn more about us, you can visit koreanhelp.org. And thank you so much for joining us today.